know if I've ever told you this, but when I was 25, when my dad died, and that's how I felt. I felt like everything sort of dimmed, like colors weren't as bright as they were. And I felt like that life ended and another life started. Kind of a weird feeling. Do y'all feel like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's like a different life, even though it's still dad, he's different. Welcome to Aging in Style, the podcast dedicated to celebrating aging and what it takes to do it well. I'm Lori Williams. I'm a certified senior advisor and senior housing expert. In each episode, you'll learn stories of older adults who are thriving in their 70s, 80s, 90s, and in some cases in their hundreds. Whether you're an older adult or the child of an older adult, this podcast is filled with insightful resources, organizations that are doing incredible work, and stories that will inspire you to volunteer, learn, and who knows, maybe even skydive in your golden years. Hi, welcome to this episode of Aging in Style. I have two very special guests. Actually, they are probably my two favorite people in the entire world, and they're here with me today. So I want to introduce you to them. And one is my son.
Hello, I'm Chris Williams. I'm 28.
Hi, I'm Abby. I'm 21.
So these are my kids, and I love them so much. And you're going to make me cry. Oh my gosh, I just looked at her little face and it almost made me cry. Anyhow, this is going to be a hard one to do, I think, because we are going to talk, the three of us. And honestly, we've not really had this deep of a conversation that we are now having. Abby and I have some, but Chris and I really haven't. And we're talking on the podcast about how life has changed, how we have changed as people over the past 18 months. And if you listen to the podcast, you know my husband Mark had a series of 4 strokes on Christmas Day 2022. And it's been, a challenging 18 months for our entire family. And I wrote a book, which is coming out very soon. And I'm excited about it. But that's kind of what led us to do this podcast. So we're going to start and talk about that night, because I think it's important, especially with young people. I don't know that I've ever really heard a podcast or any like young people talk about a traumatic event like this. And I think you're both really brave for readily agreeing to do this. When I asked them, Abby said yes. And Chris, I didn't think would say yes. And he said yes. So let's start off, and whichever one of you wants to go first can. When we saw Dad have his stroke that awful night, what was going through your mind?
Just confusion. I'm not really sure what's happening. Just not sure. It was just kind of everything went blank, I guess.
Mm-hmm. It's a good way.
I feel the same way. Just like, I know we were all kind of looking at each other like, what's happening? This is not normal. So it's like, what do we do from here?
Yeah, I would agree. I saw that in your faces. I mean, I did know. I just felt sure of what I knew what was happening. But then, of course, I left with Dad and didn't come back with him. I was keeping y'all updated from the hospital. What was going through your thoughts when I was gone?
I mean, I would say it's just like, you don't know if someone's truly coming back and just panic. I mean, it was more just silencing fear. Of course, it was Christmas. So it was like all of a sudden that Christmas was over.
Yeah.
Like now we're really changing.
Yeah, I guess just kind of standing still kind of feeling. Just kind of waiting, just waiting there, keeping my mind occupied the best I could.
Yeah, trying not to think what was happening.
Yeah.
And in the book, I talk a lot about how our neighbors and friends just really came through for us. And I felt awful leaving y'all by yourselves. And so, I called Soli, our neighbor, and Abby told me later what happened when Soli came over.
She burst through the door and started hugging us and kissing us and crying and shoving cookies in our mouths, as Soli does.
Yes.
At any holiday. But it was just extra special to see her show up for us.
Yeah. I'm so thankful for that. Yeah. And she was, really there for us. I'm going to fast forward a little bit to, once Dad was out of ICU, we kind of knew the worst of it. And we were just waiting, which seemed forever, for him to get sent to rehab. And y'all got to come see him because y'all did not see him in ICU. I think it was 3 or 4 days later before y'all saw him. What were your thoughts when you saw him for the first time?
Wasn't sure what to think, really.
Yeah.
kind of like came over me at once, I guess.
Was it kind of scary?
Well, yeah, it was kind of scary.
Yeah.
I was definitely afraid, not because like I was scared of Dad or anything or seeing him. It was just knowing that things had gotten worse and just knowing the experience you had from your updates in the ICU, that it was just going to be an unsettling thing. But we have to take that step to see Dad and be there for him. It was just really odd. It didn't feel real.
Yeah, no, it didn't feel real for a while. You're right. And Chris, and I wrote about this in the book because I just thought it was so lovely of you. You came every night once he got out of ICU, and you would come, it made me laugh. You would come through the door wearing your pajamas and with your pillow and your blanket, and you would relieve me so I could come home and have some rest. And why did you want to do that?
It just felt like it was right to help. I wasn't really doing much for that. I really was just kind of laying down, kind of just, I don't know, I guess disassociating again at first. Not really understanding what's happening. I felt like I should do something.
So at first you felt kind of disassociated, but then you realized you needed to help and wanted to be there. Yeah. And you were. I mean, I remember coming in the mornings and you would be brushing his teeth. I mean, how did you feel making that shift? Did it feel natural to you just to do that?
I think so, yeah. I felt like I should do it.
Yeah. It was really sweet. Then we, kind of moved on. If you followed the journey, he went to rehab and was in rehab until July. So our lives were very different. We were back and forth to see him and, taking care of things at home. And I know Chris really stepped up to take care of Sadie, our dog, which was great. Abby stepped up, and then Abby went back to college. And we just kind of tried, I guess, to live our lives. But it was, I don't know, how would you describe the whole last year?
I mean, I would say it was pretty heavy. Like, I felt a lot of emotions, and, I felt angry, I felt sad, I felt upset, because it is kind of like a parent has died when they leave for so long, and you kind of get used to the house being empty or short of one person. And it's like, there will be reminders. Like, I remember looking at his chair and not seeing him in it. That was weird. And just seeing like the empty bedside. That was weird. But it was just like an absence, like a deep, deep absence.
Yeah, it's absence. It was very empty for most of the day.
Yeah.
Mostly just me and Sadie. So it was very quiet.
Yeah. Because Abby went back to college, and then I was either with Dad or trying to work. And yeah.
It was just very quiet. Like, I remember like going back to the beginning of it all. It's like that silenced our entire year. Like, it was the beginning of like a year of silence or several months of silence. And it was just different, quiet and scary. And it didn't feel like the comfort of our house. It felt like we were in kind of like a dream, like a different place.
That's so interesting, because I had no idea that y'all both had that experience of it being so quiet. Because for me, it was different in that I was like trying to do so many things and deal with insurance and deal with all the different things. So my life felt chaotic, but you're right. I can see that now, that the house just was quiet, and for you too. So what would you say, like as a person, like through this experience? And I know it's a hard question to answer, but how do you feel you've changed?
I guess more mature, more willing to do more stressful things, I guess, more prepared for something more stressful.
Do things that are hard?
Yeah.
Like out of your comfort zone?
Yeah.
You really have come out of your comfort zone, Chris, because you're not typically someone who likes to really talk a whole lot with people. And I love that you're doing this right now. This is outside your comfort zone, isn't it?
Yeah.
Abby?
I mean, I think that this has changed me in both like negative and positive ways. My life just seems like a little less colorful, but I do try and enjoy those moments where the color does come back. Those happy moments that shouldn't be forgotten or overlooked by such a traumatic event.
That's interesting. It's interesting you say that, because I don't know if I've ever told you this, but when I was 25, when my dad died, and that's how I felt. I felt like everything sort of dimmed, like colors weren't as bright as they were. And I felt like that life ended and another life started. Kind of a weird feeling. Do y'all feel like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's like a different life, even though it's still dad, he's different.
And going back to like the colors, it was interesting because it was like every moment that had happened, the big moments that had happened when he was gone, it was still exciting, but it just felt like I was missing a piece of my heart. Like I just needed my dad. Over the period that he was in rehab, it was like my birthday and all my friends surprised me. And all I could think about was just, I want my dad. Like, I want my dad to see this and hear about this. I want to show him that I'm having fun and enjoying life.
Yeah. And then when dad came home, we had a caregiver for a while. And unfortunately, she had a family emergency. She was no longer able to be the caregiver. And it kind of threw us into, what are we going to do? And Chris stepped up to be a caregiver. Why was that important to you to be dad's caregiver?
Just to still be there for him and give me something more to do for everything. Like I wasn't doing as much. And that just felt like it would be a good idea. I felt like the right thing to do.
Yeah, and you've done a great job with him. And I've learned from you because you don't take anything personally. So if dad's in a bad mood, how do you, like when dad, like sometimes he, not so much anymore, but he gets frustrated, which of course it's hard for him to communicate. And then you handle him in such a brilliant way. What is it you feel when he's getting grumpy or whatever?
I can't just not take it personally. It's not a big deal, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not something major. We'll find there'll be a solution eventually.
What do you say to him do you know what you say?
No.
I think it's so cute. You don't know. You always go, when he's getting really upset and he's not understanding and you're just trying to diffuse it, you always go, all righty then. Or you go, okie dokie.
Yep, okie dokie. And then you walk out. But I've even learned from watching you, I'm very emotional and like empathetic. Like I feel a lot of the same feelings of people around me. And I soak that in a lot and take it personally. But as time has gone on, I've learned like, don't take it personally. And I just say, what would Chris do?
Yeah.
And just, there goes the okie dokie and walking out.
Exactly. Did you know we've learned that from you?
No, I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? It's actually in the book. You'll have to read the book, Chris. I'm kidding. But yeah, what would Chris do? I say that because you handle it so, so well. And it's kind of like one of those aha moments. You know, the first time was when I came home from work and I came in the kitchen and you had given dad a shower for the first time on your own. And you were real excited and you're like, I gave dad a shower. And I went, did he yell at you? And you went, yeah, but we did it. We did it. And I was just like, oh my gosh, because you focused on the positive. You accomplished the task, which is huge. And I was over here being all stressy. So how, like career-wise and thinking about your life, I know Abby, we'll address this with you and then give Chris a minute to kind of think about it too. How has this changed your plans for the future?
Well, I initially started at UNT being a studio art major and just really focusing on that. And as this experience has gone on, I've kind of switched gears, like completely almost. Like I've become a different person and now I'm transferring to TWU to be a pre-occupational therapist, like
a pre-occupational therapy program.
Psychology major with the hopes of helping people in neuro and like dad with the TBIs and
traumatic brain injury.
Oh yeah.
Listen to her. She just knows the talk already.
Just stroke care, stroke prevention and awareness. That's a big thing.
And when this kind of clicked for Abby, I think you kind of skipped over this part, but Mark had been in the hospital. He had had a seizure and he was in rehab. And you were there when the occupational therapist came in and you talked to her about what she did. And she was so sweet and so willing to engage and talk to you about it. I could see your face, but it was like a light bulb.
Yeah. I mean, everyone wishes for that to happen. It's always like, you'll never work a day in your life if you enjoy what you do, truly. And it was just like what she said changed the complete trajectory of my life. It was finally like everything made sense. And it made me kind of realize the bigger purpose in everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. Chris, do you think you want to do something caregiving or has this changed anything in how you feel?
Yeah, it's made me feel a lot more comfortable with like stressful events, more willing to just not be so afraid of certain types of like stresses, I guess. Men still looking into maybe healthcare, medicine, something like that.
Do you feel like you have more confidence?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I think you should, because you do an amazing thing around here, so that I can keep working. You're amazing with Dad. And you do a lot of really sweet things for him, get him his coffee and make sure he's well cared for. And I'm sure not a comfortable or easy thing to have to help your dad shower, help your dad dress, but you do it well. And was that uncomfortable for you at first, or
I felt stressful.
Yeah.
I'm always worried, but I've gotten used to it now.
Yeah. You do a great job. So we were talking earlier before we started recording, because this is really off the cuff, to be honest with y'all. Abby said, do you have any questions prepared? And I really didn't. I just thought, let's just kind of see where the conversation goes. But y'all were talking a little bit about traveling. And, I tell the kids, I want them to keep living their lives, especially Chris, as in the role of caregiver. I don't want this to be, and I tell you this all the time, I don't want this to be your entire life, being the caregiver for your dad. So I want you to travel and do the things you always did. And both of y'all are traveling. But Abby made a comment about traveling. Do you want to share what you had said before we start recording?
Yeah, there are a lot of bad things that have come out of like this experience, and things that you could focus on and be, really stuck in the dumps. But I mean, there are happy moments, and you do get to kind of explore and travel and have fun and enjoy those moments. Truly, it'll always be in the back of my mind of like, what happens if I'm not there, or what happens if I'm like on my way home and I miss it, It's always that fear, but it's just nice to be able to understand that you can enjoy things.
Yeah.
Go different places.
Absolutely. And that's Dad wants you to do that too, and still live your lives. I mean, y'all are kids still. What about you, Chris?
I kind of had that from a little. Especially when there's like a bunch of stuff happening all at once, like last time.
When you left last time, yeah, because you went on a trip last time. Not like you left last time. This is not what it meant. But your trip to San Francisco, we were having the bad weather, and poor Chris was stuck in the airport till 3 a.m.
Yeah, 3 a.m. about.
Yeah, Chris is traveling again Thursday.
Extremely early,
and hopefully no bad weather.
I don't think so now.
Yeah. But I mean, I love that for y'all. I want y'all to keep doing things and seeing the world, because you both love to travel and do those things. And, you need that to get away from this. And I mean, I know when I'm there, I kind of feel like myself again. Do y'all feel like that too? Or Chris?
Maybe, yeah.
It's kind of like, it just sort of like the stress falls off of you because you don't feel that heavy responsibility, I guess.
Yeah. I would say it takes a minute to really kind of get your body into that relaxed state and understand that, you've got to do this for yourself and enjoy it for yourself. And it really just feels like coming up for air, like when you're underwater and there's so many things that are weighing you down, not necessarily making you sad, but just like stressed, angry, and worried. And you really just come up for air in those few seconds. And it's just really nice to see those things and experience new experiences.
And I know we have not talked about this. I think Abby and I have, but Chris and I haven't talked about this. But something that I felt along this journey is grief, because we are grieving our life before and how Dad was. Do you feel it that way too, Chris?
Yeah, just grieving. Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, and there's different stages of grief, and we just kind of cycle through them, I think. Yeah. But I think we're all pretty much looking to accepting. Do y'all feel like you kind of reached acceptance that this is?
I feel like the stages of grief aren't exactly linear.
No, they're
people
not.
Expect it to be.
You go back around too.
Yeah, it's just an up and down path. Like there are some days where it's like, oh, I've accepted that this has all happened, and I wouldn't change it. But then there are some days that I'm very sad and very angry and wishing that it didn't happen like this. And just thinking about all of the big events in my life that are coming up, pretty soon in the future, and just how they will be different.
I know. I thought one day, and I got real upset about it. I just thought about how much we all love Disney World, and that's not going to look the same again. Like all of us going. But then I'm like focusing on that. At least we did have those great trips, you know.
When we all got lost in New York City and ate corn in the elevator.
We've had some fun times, huh, guys? Yeah. Okay, so I mean, a question maybe, do you feel different now from your peers, people your age? Because, I mean, let's face it, at 21, I hope most people aren't going through what you guys are going through. I mean, 21's young. You were 19 when Dad had his stroke. Do you feel different from your peers? Do you feel like older than them, or like you've just been through something?
I definitely do. I feel older, and it feels like my eyes have just kind of opened to how life can change so quickly. You want to take advantage of every moment you get, because quickly it can be over. And I think a lot of my peers just don't think about that.
Well, at your age, or, you know, at 19, 20, 21, you think you're invincible still, and you don't worry about that stuff. It's not till you get older and, you know, really have kids, or you lose someone close to you, that you start thinking those things. Do you feel that way too, Chris?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Do you feel worried about other things happening, other bad things, or?
Try not to think too much about that, but I don't.
That's good.
Yeah, I don't think of too far ahead about something like that.
That's why we need to be like you, Chris. You're living in the moment. And that's how we all should be. Is there anything else you wanted to share, Abby?
Trips have been different on our way back. Like, I remember I was telling like my boyfriend that it was just very odd to know that you're so far away from home, and then you can't stop anything. Like, I speak out loud and be like, I'm afraid. And you just have to accept that it's not in your control. It's not in your power.
And I think, I mean, you've always had a little anxiety, and it has given you more anxiety, which it has me too. But like Chris said, you got to stay in the moment.
Right. And that's something that, you know, as time goes on, it's getting better. And then there will be certain moments that throw you back to that moment, especially Dad's seizure. Like when the paramedics and you can hear the sirens, you always think they're so loud. Then they come right up. But it's like every moment I hear a siren, it just flashes me.
Yeah, I think we all have a little PTSD over that. And that's so true what you said with the sirens. That's the crazy thing. If you hear an ambulance coming into your neighborhood, you hear the sirens really loud, unless they're coming for someone at your house. And for some odd reason, they don't sound loud.
No.
And the other crazy thing is, you think, I'm going to stay very calm. I'm going to call 911. And Mark's first seizure, I'm holding the phone, asking Chris, call 911, and I've got the phone. Yeah. So those experiences, it's very different from what you would imagine. Would you say that, Chris? Yeah.
I mean, it's very dreamlike. Like, I remember when Dad had his second seizure, it was like, I was completely asleep, and I just heard you like scream, and it was just like, all of a sudden, things were moving fast. I'm running down the stairs.
Well,
and you needed to do that.
I was screaming because he didn't have my phone, and I was holding him in his wheelchair as he was seizing, and I didn't want him to fall out. Yeah. And it was early morning, and you and Chris were asleep upstairs. So I felt horrible having to scream, but I needed help for him, and I couldn't leave him.
Yeah.
I think that gave you a little PTSD, and I apologize for that.
I mean, it's just something that, like, I think is another experience that will help when working with other people in the situation.
When you're an occupational therapist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, just being knowledgeable about the feelings that anyone could feel, the different feelings that people feel. Like, I know we've talked about how I feel very differently than you do, like some days. But while we get the gist and understand kind of how we both are, we deal with things very differently.
And Chris is over there like, you girls are all in your feelings. And Chris is like, live in the moment, right?
Yeah.
What's your best advice for someone going through something like this, Chris?
Just relax and just don't think about the future or past too much. Just kind of focus on right now, I guess.
Don't go back in the past.
Think about the little things you're supposed to do at the moment.
That's good advice. And I didn't think about that. I don't think about the past or the future, because that's the other thing when you get stuck in the past, like in a loop, like of reliving, which, my mind went there, reliving that seizure over and over. And it's not healthy to do that. I mean, I think I just kind of like processed it that way, but it's best not to get stuck focusing on that, right? Mm-hmm. What about you, Appy? Do you have any words of advice for younger people that are having to be in your shoes, which I hope no one does?
Let's see. It's definitely scary, and you can feel all the emotions you need to feel because you deserve to be able to express those, and you shouldn't be afraid of, letting them out, like obviously in a safe and healthy way. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those things where it's like, if you try and hold it all in, you're never going to fix the problem. You're going to try and go and fix other things without going back to the root cause. And it's just, how can I use this to help other people? Mm-hmm. Like, how can I raise awareness for something that, not a lot of people really see?
Well, and I think, becoming an occupational therapist, especially focusing in neuro, is what you want to do. You're going to help a lot of people. And I think by sharing, being open and sharing like both of you are doing, I think you're going to help someone, at least one person. This could touch their life. And I hope with the book as well, sharing our experience, our family, what we've gone through will help someone too.
Yeah. I think it's also another really important thing to remember is just everything is going on internally and how difficult that is to process, that always hold compassion for other people. Mm-hmm. Because, most people don't see what goes on behind closed doors. People don't see, going to school every day and seeing my classmates, no one really knew.
That's a good point. You don't know what's happening in someone else's life.
Any minute, someone's life could change. So
it can.
Understanding, communicating, and, being open.
All good points. Well, I love you both very much. Y'all seriously are my two favorite people ever. And Daddy too. We'll add Daddy, but my two favorite. Sadie. And Sadie, our dog Sadie. She's been a little hero too. We thought about interviewing her, but that would have been limited to some barks and who knows what else. She probably would have, sniffing. She probably would have eaten the microphone. But I appreciate both of you for wanting to do this and being open and sharing your feelings. You two are my heroes. I love you both so much.
You're my hero.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris. And thank you, Abby, for being my guest today. Y'all are so cute. We should have been videoing this one so y'all could see how cute they are. But anyhow, thank you all for listening. And the book is coming very soon where you can learn more about our journey. And like we've all said, we hope that from this experience, we can help at least one other person. And I think it's important to hear the perspective from a young adult. I don't want to call you kids because you're young adults, but from their point of view with their fathers. So anyhow, thanks for listening. And you can listen to all the podcasts on my website, LoriWilliams-seniorservices.com. And tune in next week where we'll have, actually next week's going to be a great show. We're going to actually introduce the book. So it's going to be episode number 200. All right. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.